Welcome back to this explainer. So you're staring down an upcoming economics or rural development exam, right? Well, take a deep breath. Today, we are going to take a seemingly overwhelming topic, rural indebtedness and credit, and we're going to turn it into something completely manageable. Yes, even if you literally waited until the night before to study. Think of this explainer as your ultimate exam study guide. I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know, step by step, using clear definitions and super simple examples so you can walk into that test with total confidence.
Okay, let's dive right in by starting with a crucial question that you will almost certainly see on your exam. What exactly is the rural debt trap? Now, it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in textbooks and news reports, but to get full marks, you really need to understand the underlying mechanics of how it actually functions. Here is our syllabus for today's explainer, giving you a clear mental map. 1. Defining the debt trap. 2. Causes and tragic consequences. 3. Why farmers need credit. 4. Types of rural loans. And 5. Formal versus informal sources.
All right, Section 1, Defining the Debt Trap. Let's look at the actual meaning of indebtedness.
So rural indebtedness basically occurs when farmers or villagers borrow money and they just can't pay it back. But, and this is the kicker for your exam, it doesn't just stop at one unpaid bill. Think about it like this. Say a farmer borrows $100 just to buy seeds for the season. But then, tragically, the crops fail. So now they owe that $100 plus interest and they have literally zero income. To pay off that first, probably very angry lender, they're forced to go to a second lender and borrow, say, $150. Now they are officially in a debt trap. They are borrowing more money simply to repay older loans, effectively digging a deeper and deeper hole every single season.
Moving right along to Section 2, Causes and Consequences. Let's look at the ripple effects.
So what causes this? Well, we can logically group the causes into three main buckets, which is going to make this incredibly easy for you to remember on test day. You've got nature, economics, and social factors. On the nature side, farmers are completely at the mercy of the elements, right? A sudden flood or a massive drought can literally wipe out an entire year's income overnight. Economically, farming is actually a pretty high-cost endeavor. Buying seeds, fertilizers, equipment, that requires a lot of upfront cash. Meanwhile, the final income is low and super uncertain. Combine that with a lack of cheap, formal credit, and yeah, they are in deep trouble. And finally, you definitely cannot forget the social bucket. In a lot of rural communities, there's immense cultural pressure to spend big on social obligations. We're talking weddings, funerals, that sort of thing. A family might borrow huge sums of money just to meet these expectations, which, sadly, sets them up for total financial disaster.
Once a family falls into this trap, the ripple effects are, well, they're just devastating. When you get this question on the exam, you absolutely must emphasize the human impact here. We are not just talking about numbers on a balance sheet. We're talking about extreme mental stress and depression. We see families forced into the heartbreaking position of selling off their generational land, their vital assets just to survive. And obviously, this causes a sharp rise in overall poverty. This desperate situation throws the door wide open to severe exploitation by high-interest moneylenders who just prey on that vulnerability. Even worse, it often leads to a spike in child labor because kids are being pulled right out of the classroom to work the fields and help pay off the debt. And, as is incredibly well documented in India, this cycle is a primary driver behind the tragic rise in farmer suicides.
On to Section 3, Why farmers need credit. Honestly, why take on the risk and borrow at all?
Now you might be thinking, well, credit sounds awful. But credit itself isn't the enemy here. In fact, it is absolutely essential for survival, for modernization, and ultimately for breaking free from exploitation. You have to remember, farming is a business, and businesses need capital. Farmers need money to invest in modern farming tech, better irrigation systems, a tractor, high-yield seeds. Plus, they need a financial safety net to handle unpredictable emergencies. Basically, having access to fair, reasonable credit is what allows them to increase agricultural production, which directly improves their rural income and living standards. So write this down for the test. The problem isn't the credit itself. The problem is the exploitative terms of the credit they're usually forced to take.
Section 4. Types of rural loans. Short, medium, and long. All right, let's build the ultimate cheat sheet for your exam so you can instantly recall how these loans are categorized by time and use case. First up, short-term loans. These are super quick turnarounds, fully repaid within 1 year. The classic example? Buying seeds and fertilizers at the start of the season and paying it right back after the harvest. Then we have medium-term loans.
These give you a little more breathing room. They're repaid in 1 to 5 years. A farmer would grab one of these for a slightly larger investment, like purchasing farming equipment or maybe a tractor that's going to pay for itself over a few seasons. And lastly, long-term loans. These are your 5+ year repayment plans. Think massive, generational investments here. Stuff like buying brand new land or doing major structural overhauls to the whole farm.
And finally, Section 5, formal versus informal sources of credit.
So where do they actually get this money? There are two main pipelines, and they yield wildly different results. On one side, you have the informal or traditional sources. This is your local moneylenders, powerful landlords, traders, or even just friends and relatives. Because these aren't regulated by the government in any way, relying on them almost always leads straight to exploitation and cripplingly high interest rates. Now, on the flip side, we have formal institutional sources. These are fully regulated entities. We're talking commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperative banks, and, crucially, NABARD. That's the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. You've also got modern microfinance institutions stepping up here. Definitely memorize this contrast for the exam. The entire goal of modern rural development is shifting the reliance away from that exploitative informal side straight over to the regulated institutional formal side.
All right, let's lock this into our memory with a rapid-fire review of the key takeaways you need to ace this topic. Number 1, rural indebtedness is not just a stagnant debt, it's a vicious, cyclical debt trap. 2, the causes are all over the map, ranging from uncontrollable natural disasters to heavy social expenses. 3, despite the risks, credit is totally vital for agricultural growth. 4, know those loan timelines, short, medium, and long term. And 5, the main policy solution to stop informal exploitation is expanding access to institutional credit, like NABARD and those regional rural banks.
Before we completely wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a quick thought exercise to really push your understanding to the next level. Think about this critically when you're outlining your essays. If we actually solve the access to formal credit using modern tools, right, like smartphones and mobile banking, and then we pair that with new, climate-resilient agricultural technologies, how does that change the future of farming entirely? Like, could the next generation literally be free of the debt trap once and for all? It's a fascinating area to consider, and it's a fantastic way to show some really deep understanding on your exam. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this study session. Review these concepts, practice your definitions, and you are absolutely going to crush it. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.